Yes, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live podcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Tuesday morning. 36 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m., 2nd June 2026. Always a pleasure to be back with you guys, and I wish to say thank you so much to all of those of you that managed to catch us for last night's podcast, and I hope you continue to do the same. This morning, we are back with the conversation. I took a bit of time trying to find the best possible topic for us to discuss because, you know, when it's time for the summer, oftentimes topical discussions can be difficult when you're looking for just that sort of makes football people appreciate everything for what it is. And usually when the season is done and we have those first couple of weeks in the immediate aftermath of the season where there's a bit of slowness to the news, there's a bit of an eerie silence in some spaces in as far as football is concerned, but it's understandable after the marathon and of 8-9 months over the entirety of a campaign. That's bound to happen, that people take a backseat and try to, leisure it off. Unfortunately, this year, it being a World Cup year, we do not have much room for lackluster or rest in that sort of sense. So that's why the conversation does not have to stop. But I managed to find something very, very interesting, and it is something that we partly discussed. Something we partly discussed. I think yesterday night, in part. But I thought we can have a better crack at this and perhaps an in-depth overview of this because of what's to come. It's a sort of conversation that obviously subsequently we'll have to carry on during the course of the summer, and as per the things that depending on the course of direction of how things will go. Like, obviously you can never be tall enough to see what the future will bring, but you can always pick up your torch and try to draw insights predictively of what you think could happen. And if that doesn't happen, what's the alternative? So basically, this morning, we'll be talking about that. We'll have a chance to dig through some of the World Cup squads for some of the respective countries. Obviously, it being a 48 tournament, I cannot promise you that I'll sit here and give you a bit for bit everything that you would want to have about each country. As the case is, we'll try to major on the majors and minor on the minors. So expect that in the coming couple of weeks. So this morning, where should we start? Obviously, we'll start at the club level and then digress to the World Cup end of things. But more importantly, last night we also had a discussion about the World Cup, and now we are what? It kicks off on 11th of June this time. So that means we are about 8 days away from the kickoff. So, excuse me. So we look forward to, with a great anticipation of what the World Cup could bring in as far as things go. Not just here, but I would want to assume that's the talk of town for many people. Many times when the World Cup comes around, for us, most countries do not qualify, and particularly for me, for Uganda having never qualified for a World Cup, it's always a period of imagination, trying to make sense of whether one day we'll ever get to qualify. Hi, Prince Williams. Good morning. Who am I to be in the midst of a prince? Good to have you on the podcast. So it's oftentimes that time of that period of time where you imagine, if my country ever qualified for the World Cup, how would it like? How would it look like? How would it fare? What group would it be in? How would it fare amongst the big boys. Oftentimes we have this predisposition of, if let's say my country Uganda qualified and they are drawn in the same group with a country like England, like Brazil or Argentina, these football giants, we could get obliterated, and suffer those embarrassing or humiliating defeats. But it's just an imagination until such a time when we cross that line. Obviously, we will never know. I remember the 39-year wait for an AFCON qualification. And when we eventually qualified and got there to, was it the 2016 edition or 27? I think in 2016 for the 2017 edition, and subsequently for the 2019 edition, then skipped wore an edition, I think, in 2021 and 2023, which was played in 2024, before, no, we skipped a couple of editions there anyway, in between. So we always leave to that space. But I remember the first time when we went there, our ambitions were not bigger than, have never been bigger than making it out of the group stages, because that's the realistic vision to have. So the first time we went back, we never made it out of the group stages, but we're just happy to be back at that stage. Sometimes you're just happy that something happened as opposed to how it happened, So we're just happy to be at that stage. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be the story for many, many countries, especially countries that are at the World Cup for the first time, countries like Haiti, countries like Scotland, that regardless of what the performances will be eventually, a lot of their people are going to be really, really proud that their countries made it there in the first place. So, and I think that's the best we can wish for some of these countries. Anyways, this morning our conversation is going to rotate around Arsenal's priorities this summer, and with those priorities, they begin from the managerial level and trickle down to how they build their squad or improve their squad, knowing too well that even after achieving what they've managed to achieve, after 22 years, it can quickly slip away. That, you see, building something is so hard, but demolishing it may be so simple, or the collapse of it. As a person who works in the digital communication space and PR, I know for an absolute fact that building a brand is something very, very cumbersome. But breaking that brand could be an incidental act of something small that then brings the total brand into disrepute, and before you know it, you've lost the whole plot. So similarly, for the Arsenal, the question is, how do they build on from here and onwards? Because we saw, if they needed any kind of reminder, Liverpool is a prime example of being reigning champions this season, and then the subsequent season things have literally fall apart. And for Mikel Arteta, or if he needs a prime example, that has culminated into the sacking of Arne Slot just a season after he's won the Premier League title. It will be hard to envision, given the length of time that Mikel Arteta spent at Arsenal, that it could slice that way for him as well. But just excuse me. But anything can happen. Anything can happen. So you do not leave anything to chance or anything for granted when it comes to the extent of that. So, for starters, the first priority for Arsenal is going to be to renew Mikel Arteta's contract, because his current contract has 1 year left to it, and it runs out next summer. So they must keep the king of the hill. And those conversations, luckily enough for them, had already started some time back, even though they had been put on hold to wait for the end of the season. Now that the season is wrapped up, and we know how it is wrapped up, we know they've won the Premier League title, We know they lost the Champions League final. We know they lost the Carabao Cup final. We know they bow out of the FA Cup at the quarterfinals. So, in other words, if you are awarding marks for how they performed, or Mikel Arteta on his report card, you'd give him an A plus for the Premier League because he's won it. You'd give him a B plus for the Champions League because he made it to the final. A B plus for the Carabao Cup. I think you'll give him a C plus for maybe a C minus for the FA Cup because he made it to the quarterfinals and lost to a team like Southampton. So maybe you get that. So, anyways, okay. Know Your Creator says love from Bangladesh. Thank you so much, Know Your Creator. You go on to say, worship the Creator, not his creation. Say your Creator is only one. He is self-sufficient. He begot, not no, he begotten. There is nothing like him. That's from the Quran, I think. Unless you say you're citing the Quran, you're going to say your Creator is the one who created death and life in order to. Okay, here's the Almighty. Thank you so much, Know Your Creator, for that insight this morning, and welcome to the Football Tribe EG channel. So, anyways. For them, the priority is going to be to finalize that contract because that's where it all begins. You have to keep the captain of the ship and ensure that they're locked in for the future. And I do not think they'll find much trouble in convincing him because although he's previously had doubts on how he progresses with this Arsenal project, those doubts lay in the idea that he had failed to cross the line. Now that he's had a taste of glory, I think if he had any self-doubt, if he can take this team over the line, he's proven to himself that it is possible with him. Now the question becomes, how then better can he go or perform beyond this? I've said this before, that the challenge for Arsenal is that they've never defended the Premier League title. And that's his challenge. Can he write new history in as far as this club is concerned? Obviously, they've never won the UEFA Champions League. And that's something that a huge test he still has to overcome. At the first time of his asking, he's fallen short because when you look at the last 3 seasons, ever since he brought them back to the UEFA Champions League, they made it to the quarterfinals and lost to Bayern Munich. Subsequently, lost to PSG in the semi-finals. Subsequently, lost to the same side in the finals. So, in other words, it's been progress after progress until such a point where they need to cross over the line. Similarly, in the Premier League, for 3 consecutive years, they finished second until they crossed the line and won the Premier League title. So the challenge for them is going to be, how do we maintain this momentum? How do we keep this candle burning without digressing? Because it's no longer going to be enough to compete, but every season must end with a piece of silverware. No matter how big or small, it has to end in that direction. For starters, they have a Community Shield game to play against Manchester City, but that's in the distant future. When it comes to August, in the curtain riser of the season. But before we get there, so they have to make sure his contract is well set, so that they do not live with that anxiety. And like I said, I do not think they will have troubles because he's where he needs to be. I think he's happy, in a happy place, now that he's won something. That's the 44-year-old Spanish gaffer. He earns £10 million per season, plus a further £5 million upon UEFA Champions League qualification. Now, that's a juicy deal. And this is what I was speaking about when it came to player contracts the other day, that sometimes it feels so simple and yet it isn't. Because I was being asked a question, I don't remember exactly the question, and I was telling them, look here guys, sometimes player contracts, everything is agreed, but those minor details in bonuses, in what not. So for Mikel Arteta, he gets his £10 million per season. I do not know what the average is that of a month or a week, but That's good money. And then every time Arsenal qualify for the UEFA Champions League, he gets a bonus. And so do those Arsenal players, I want to presume. So apparently, his new contract would make him the highest paid manager in English football following the exit of Pep Guardiola. Because apparently, Pep Guardiola's contract at Manchester City was worth in the excess of £20 million a season. So Arteta would eclipse that. Now, I mean, maybe it's a deserved reward given that he's going to be the longest serving manager in as far as the Premier League is concerned at a particular club. Because when you look around, most of these others, some are barely into weeks the job, others just months, others a year or two, and things like that. So the other does reminding you of the sort of sweeping managerial changes that we've had at the top brass. Chelsea have somebody new in Xabi Alonso. Manchester United in Michael Carrick. Liverpool are going to have somebody new in charge now that Arne Slot is left. Tottenham Hotspurs have Roberto Di Zerbi. Maybe Unai Emery is possibly the second longest because he's been at Aston Villa since was it October or November 2022 thereabout. Same applies for Ed Howe, at Newcastle. Those two. But you look at Manchester City, they're going to be with Enzo Maresca. So basically, you can see all these changes. David Moyes, just what? A year and a half since he's returned to Everton and that kind of thing. So anyways, recently, Josh Kroenke made it clear to the world that keeping Mikel around is an utmost priority, and I think the good news for Arsenal fans worldwide is enjoying the project. So those were the words of Josh Kroenke, the Arsenal co-chair. Remember, his dad is the chairman, Stan Kroenke, and so he's co-chair. So he knows that they have a good coach, and they must keep a hold of him and see how to better motivate him and facilitate his future success. And like I've told you before, he's told the world that they know that the world is now watching. And how do we knock off Arsenal off of that level where they've been competing quite consistently? When you look at what is happening at Liverpool, when you see what is happening at Manchester United and possibly Chelsea, in as far as the Premier League context is concerned, everybody is building towards that. The same way at the European level, everybody is trying to build to dethrone PSG. So it will start with that. Then it has to go to the incomings and outgoings. Yet last night, we spoke about Arsenal's interest in bolstering their forward lines, and they are looking at players like Morgan Rogers and Elliot Junior Kropi from FC Bournemouth, as well as their long-term known interest in Julian Alvarez. Now, unfortunately, I feel like all these deals are too expensive to pull off. Not that Arsenal do not have the resources to go and pull them off, because you see, I've explained this before, that when a club has a transfer budget of, let's say, £300 million, they do not necessarily need to have the £3 million in cash. They simply need to structure deals to the tune of £300 million with payments spread over a given period of time, that they come good on those. So effectively, last season that they spent around £250 million on new players alone, bringing in players like Eberechi Eze, Christian Nogard, Kepa Arrizabalaga, Christian Mosquera, Victor Gyökeres, Noni Madueke, who else? Of course, Pierre Hincapié came in on loan. They have an obligation to buy. So when it comes to that, first of all, there are expected outgoings. And among the outgoings, they've already part ways with Jakub Kivior. He spent last season on loan out at FC Porto, and I do not know how, but in addition to the modest loan fee that they paid, they managed to land him for about £14.7 million. That's according to BBC Sport. I'd want to assume that maybe there's a future sell-on clause or bonuses. I do not know. Excuse me. And then Ethan Wanyeri is one of those players that they expect to part ways with. It is expected that he will be put on sale. Ben White, Gabriel Jesus, Christian Norgard, Fabio Vieira, and Reece Nelson. Now, Fabio Vieira spent last season out on loan to Hamburg SV in German, where he provided what? Was it 5 squad? Was it 5? He had a couple of goal involvements, a couple of assists, and a few goals here and there. Quinton says, you got your cupcakes. I got chocolate chips, cupcakes tonight. Amen, sir. I listen to you and eat my damn cupcakes. Hi, Quinton. Good to have you. How is the USA? Now, so you have a litany of players. Then Reece Nelson spent out on loan last season at Brentford. I do not think they're going to be looking to make that move permanent. He's the kind of player who the quality is there. Thank you so much, Quinton. The quality is there, but this lack of luck with injuries keeps on costing him. I remember when he had a stint in Germany. Was it at Hoffenheim? Nothing but love from here. Thank you so much. And he did well. So Arsenal managed to convince him to renew his contract. I think it was a 5-year deal. I do not think they'll find difficult in finding a buyer. They'll find difficult in finding a buyer that is willing to pay the right price for him. The beauty of it, however, or for the Arsenal, this transfer window is going to be that because they brought in the resources emanating from winning the Premier League, going to as far as the finals of the UEFA Champions League, and doing well in these other competitions. It sort of improved their revenues from merchandise, from commercial deals, etc., etc. And therefore, they are not going to be in the position where they are compelled to sell just for the sake of selling. They must sell at the right price. So there's a whole host of players that they are looking to move on. They are willing to listen to offers for Gabriel Jesus, for Gabriel Martinelli. Leandro Trossard's contract has 12 months left to it. And there are Premier League teams that have made inquiries, as well as teams from overseas. So those are 3 players. Now, if you are to lose those 3 players, you must find direct replacements. In addition to Christian Norgard. Now, for Christian Norgard, as unfortunate as it may sound, I do not think he's done much wrong. But because of the resurgency of Mazraoui Skelly in that midfield role, I think Arsenal may double down on their idea of trying to find a central midfielder, because then you have Mazraoui Skelly, you have Martin Zubimendi, and you have Declan Rice. Those are 3 good central midfielders. If you're thinking about an addition, I would want to think you're looking at that Martin Odegaard role. And if you get yourself Morgan Rogers, he can play off of the left, and he can also play in that Morgan Rogers role. Nonetheless, a number 8 would still suffice. Somebody to challenge Declan Rice or to push him further. And we know for an absolute fact that because Rice can play as a 6, maybe you get somebody in there. Whether it's a Sandro Tonali, whether it's a Joao Neves, I do not know. But it does feel like a body in that midfield is there. However, and I remember being asked this question, if I had to choose between an attacking midfielder and a central midfielder, who would I sign? If I had to choose one. And I went for an attacking midfielder because the person who asked me the question, and I think it was Bash Ghana who asked me this question on TikTok, and in his view, he thought Arsenal needs a ball distributor from the deeper areas as opposed to the guy that creates the chances at the top end of the foot chain. Now, I, for one, I do not think that Arsenal have trouble in carrying that ball from behind. But the person that links the central midfield, the creative midfield, to the attack is where they are a bit lacking. Slick says, love from Superpower, Pakistan. Thank you so much, Slick. Good to have you in the podcast. So, in a nutshell, for me, that's why I feel that they need somebody. So, when you look at all those players, and I intend to do, for all intents and purposes, I intend to do a video of keep or sell when it comes to these multiple squads. So Gabriel Jesus, Gabriel Martinelli, and Martinelli, Saudi pro clubs are interested. Bayern Munich and PSG are reported to have interest. Leandro Trossard, then in addition to Ethan Nwaneri, that's 4. In addition to Ben White, that's 5. In addition to Christian Nogard, that's 6 players. Fabio Vieira, that's 7 players. Reece Nelson, that's 8 players. Jakub Kiwior, who is already left, that's 9 players. Now, for the goalkeepers, unless Kepa Arrizabalaga were to leave, I do not see how they go into a market for a goalkeeper. But I wouldn't rule anything out. So, now, the move about Morgan Rogers, they're weighing their options, and there seems to be a bit of a contention here that with the availability of Martin Odegaard and Eberechi Eze, who can play in the central attacking areas already in the squad, there are questions being raised over whether a move for him is a priority. Because, in a way, Morgan Rogers is a blend of the two players, in a way. You have Eberechi Eze in the player, the fashion of Morgan Rogers, So that's why I keep saying maybe somebody of a different mold. Then the question becomes, but who exactly? Is it going to be Adagula? Is it going to be Kenan Yildiz? Is it going to be Nico Paz? Is it going to be... Unfortunately, Orhan Sunset has fallen off the wagon this season. PSG do not have that creative midfielder, in my humble opinion. For Bayern Munich, they rely more on the width than they rely on the number 10, whether it's a Serge Gnabry, whether it's a Jamal Musiala, whether it's a Leonard Karl, with the way they go about things, Snaggy Duzit says, have you eaten? Yeah, I had some breakfast. I had plantain for breakfast and a cup of tea, black tea. But thanks for asking. But it's okay if you want to buy me a cup of coffee as well. I could still take it. Thank you so much for joining in. So anyways, that's where the priorities are going to be with Arsenal, in terms of the outgoings, in terms of the incomings. But like I said, they have an appreciation for Julian Alvarez. If you ask me, out of Morgan Rogers and Julian Alvarez, of course, Julian Alvarez is a much more expensive option, estimated to cost you at least 120 million pounds. Somebody was again having this discussion, and I intend to have it with, I don't know, a group of people to further help me guide my opinion about this. And I do not know how I'm going to do this, but I'm really, really interested in getting views of different fans. Arsenal fans, Manchester United fans, Chelsea fans. I really, really have questions for you guys. And any one of you that can reach out and you're willing to have this conversation about any of those respective teams, kindly reach out, and let's have a conversation. Somebody made the submission and said, instead of spending 120 million pounds or 100 million pounds on Julian Alvarez, I would rather spend it elsewhere. And the question is, how? Now, I understand where they're coming from. I'll give you an example. If there is a world of possibility where you can land Kvisha Kvaratskhelia for 80 million pounds, I'll take him any day for the left wing role. And then that means the sort of 40 million pounds that then you have left, you'd use for an understudy striker. I don't know who you're going to hunt for out there, but I would get him. This idea that Elliot Junior Kropi is worth 80 million pounds is absolutely bonkers. is absolutely bonkers. I mean, what's it done to be worth 80 million pounds? If Elliot Junior Kropi is worth 80 million pounds, then how much should a club be thinking on a financial outlay if they had any dreams of attempting to sign Lamine Yamal, you know, of going to Barcelona and signing Pedri? Because what's it done that Adagula is not capable of doing? And Adagula is a 10, by the way. Or that Kenan Yildiz is not done, if not even done better. That Nico Paz is not done, if not even done better. So this exaggeration of price tags, I'm not one for it. So, but the 19-year-old French forward who scored 13 goals in his debut campaign has attracted lots of attention from the likes of Arsenal, the likes of Manchester City, etc., etc. Then also, they're looking at teenager Jeremy Monga, only 16 years of age. Now, when it comes to Jeremy Monga, unless they're signing him to be an academy player, I just do not see it, you know. Scott 1992 says you will never sing that you will never sing the Champions League or Europe, you'll never sing that. Okay, Scott. I don't know what refresh you're making to or refresh you're making to, but I don't know. I think you're taking a dig at Arsenal fans out there saying they'll never get to sing that they are the champions of Europe, something like that. So, but like I said, this resurgence of this resurgence of Mazuri Skeli in that midfield role and how well he's executed his responsibilities has forced or has backed Arsenal into a corner of having to rethink their priorities when it comes to signing a midfielder. And I mean, for a player that has been part of this group for now 2 years, why would I go out to spend 60 million pounds on Matas Fernandes if I have a player of Mazlu Skeli, you know? Millie, please stop spamming. Kindly stop. It doesn't look good on you. It doesn't look good on you. Not one bit. You know? It just doesn't look good on you. So please don't spam. So anyways, I'll just put you on a timeout for 5 minutes and then you'll have to rethink your options. V Mboro says, bro, have you ever been to Nigeria? Not a chance. To be honest, guys, I've never left my country. I've never exited the confines of the borders of my country. So when it comes to Nigeria, I don't know if Nigeria has ever been on my bucket list. I've always watched it from afar. But I do have an appreciation for Nigerians in the space of tech, in the space, they love their jollof rice, obviously, and pepper soup. Anyway, that's some of the things I know about Nigerians. But they're very smart people, very smart people. My club has won 13 times, 2 times undefeated, 1999 and 2008. Scott is a Manchester United fan, so he's talking about their triumphs in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned. When they beat Bayern Munich in the finals of 99 by 2-1, when they were without Roy Keane and Paul Scholes, only team to ever do that. Really? Okay. So, anyways, it's all good. It's all good. So let's move on to the World Cup. Like I said, because this episode is supposed to cover the World Cup as well. So the World Cup squads are out there. I know for a fact that England have flown to Miami to get ready and going for the World Cup. But I thought we could take a look at, some of the World Cup squads that have been that have prepared themselves to go and try and do it. Okay. Arsenal not getting Fernandes, he has said he wants United. I cannot speak with absolute certainty about that. You know, usually those that's spinning from the media when it comes to some of these things, and it's not to disqualify your view that maybe you could have a preference for Manchester United over Arsenal. That happens all the time with players. We've seen it with Bryan Mbeumo. We've seen it with Matthias Cunha for clubs that had wanted to sign them. You know, that happens. So it's completely understandable if it were his preference to join. But at least I cannot confirm it that is what is exactly said, or that is what is the case. Really? Okay, so why did Arsenal lose the finals? Oscar Rodriguez is a Tottenham fan, says, come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Spurs, indeed. Spurs have a lot of work to do this summer. They would want to avoid whatever has happened to them over the last two campaigns to get back. You see, football is funny. 9 years ago, in 2017, Tottenham Hotspurs finished second of the Premier League log, behind Chelsea, the eventual champions, with 86 points. In the subsequent 2 years, they played the finals of the UEFA Champions League. Over the last 2 seasons, they've been flirting with relegation. So much so that this season they needed a final day victory to guarantee that they do not suffer the drop-off, the cut-off. So whatever has happened at Tottenham Hotspurs, and I wish Ash was here. Ash is also a Tottenham Hotspur fan, to give me what their views would be on how Spurs rebuild themselves going forward. Jive at 5 says, why did Arsenal lost the finals? Why they lost the finals, I thought, for me, it boiled down to a lack of luck. Because once you play that good enough and you take the game to penalties, it boils down to chance. It boils down to chance. It's a 50-50. Bury your penalties and you have a chance. Miss them and you're gone. So basically, they just did not have the luck, in my humble view, you know. We failed to replace Ken and Son, unfortunately. I think to look at it that way would be to simplify Tottenham's problems. I think they have wider problems than just the failed replacement of those players. Nonetheless, in losing Son Heung-min, I thought they lost a very, very invaluable player at a time when they still could have used his services. He may have not been still at the topmost level, but there's a reason as to why you keep some senior players, the quality that he had exhibited over the years at Tottenham Hotspur, quite around for quite some time. So in Dominic Solanke, they got a good striker who, of course, not as good as Harry Kane, but injuries have been an issue. You have Richarlison, you've had Randall Colomwani. I mean, when you have those 3 forwards, there should be enough to score you 30 goals in a Premier League season, regardless of how they distribute those goals amongst themselves, to offer you what Harry Kane would offer you. So injuries have been a key part of that, and they need to investigate. Why are they having so many injuries? I know for an absolute fact that Arsenal have needed to go out of their way to try and get an independent physiotherapist to help them investigate why they are getting so many injuries. Because in no unique circumstances, compared to last season, Arsenal have suffered a host of injuries. I think the second most number of injuries, second to Tottenham Hotspur this season. And the only difference is that compared to last season, this season they've had a better squad. So in having a better squad, it helped them cope with those injuries. But it did not take away, you know, the idea of suffering so many injuries. So equally, by extension, their rivals in Tottenham Hotspur ought to investigate. James Maddison, Dejan Kulusevski, Yves Bissouma, Mohamed Kudus, Christian Romero, Rodrigo Bentancur, Lucas Bagville. I mean, all those players suffered injuries along the course of the season. Wilson Odebat, unfortunately. So, it is what it is. Okay, Oscar Rodriguez says, we failed to replace. Oh, I read that. Ajaib said they lost because they are not professional. I don't know what you mean by they are not professional. I don't know what you seek to infer with that. Arsenal need better dietists. Okay, I do not know much about nutrition, so I will not speak to that. I do not know if poor diet could be cause for injuries. WSFK 2170 says, what's up? KRS1, thank you. Machuamen returns and says, still gutted because of the UEFA Champions League final. Congratulations to PSG. Can't wait for the World Cup to start to overcome this loss. I don't know. It's like I said, it's really, really oftentimes hard to find the positives when you find yourself on the losing side of a final. But it is what it is. I can only hope that you do find it within you to appreciate the players for what they've achieved and your club what they've achieved throughout the campaign, that you pick yourself up and look forward to the next best thing that you can hold on to until the season resumes. Yeah, it can be very, very painful to lose the final. So, but yeah, for Tottenham Hotspurs, yeah, so many injuries. And by the way, I've never been one with a school of thought that Tottenham Hotspurs do not have good players. They have very, very good players. When you read out their squad, Pedro Porro, Destiny Udogi, Dejad Space, Mickey van de Ven, Kevin Danso, Christian Romero, Jovis Bissouma, Joao Paulinho, Rodrigo Bentancur, Lucas Bagville, Dejad Kulusevski, James Maddison, Xavi Simons, Wilson Odebat, Matthias Thiel, Randall Colomwani, of course, was on loan from PSG, Ricardson, Andre Day, Dominic Solanke. I mean, when I assess that squad, it does not appear that they have a bad squad. And yet somehow they've struggled to put results on board. But like I said, injuries are a big part of that, and they need to investigate. First of all, the hallmark of a good player is you have to be available. Even if you're Lionel Messi quality, for as long as you're not available for selection for your team, you're useless. It's as simple as that. There's no way around it. So Dejad Kulusevski is one of the best players that Tottenham Hotspur have. But for as long as he's not available for selection, his goodness cannot be shown. So they need to address that. Raymond Kangumba is of the view that Saudi Arabia owners should sell at least 25% of Newcastle to Amanda Stevali. That wouldn't change much for as long as they remain with controlling interest and run the football affairs. Unless you want the model that, as is such as Manchester United, where the Glazers have relinquished in the excess of 25% to Sir Jim Ratcliffe and given him with his Ineos group to run the footballing affairs and decisions at the club. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay, what do you think will win? Who do I think will win the World Cup? Now, Oscar Rodriguez. First of all, for starters, I can only hope that you've subscribed to the channel and like the broadcast. On that very question, yesterday I was tasked to make the same prediction with the enticement or with the incentive that if I get it right, I will win £20 from Reluctant Gamer. Reluctant Gamer is one of those, regular suspects that oftentimes joins us. Apologies on that. I do not know. One of my microphones is spoiled. It runs out of battery very, very quickly. I do not know why. I don't know if it still charges. It's something that I've sort of labored my head about, but I just don't know. I just don't know why that is the case. I can only hope. Anyways, that aside. So I'm still telling you. So he challenged me to predict who will win the World Cup. And I requested for a bit of time until such a time before the World Cup eventually kicks off that I'm given the time to assess and see, because it's £20 for me at stake. Can you imagine if I won the £20? It would mean a lot to me anyways. So, but to answer your question, Oscar Rodriguez, I do not know who is going to win at the moment. I've not yet made that prediction. But I've mentioned the following countries as favorites to win it in no particular order: Spain, France, England, Portugal, Argentina, and in sixth place, allow me sneak them in. Allow me sneak them in because of their pedigree in the competition. 5-time champions, Brazil. Yes. So that's where I'm at. That's where I am at for now. So I don't know who you think is going to win it, but when I assess the different World Cup squads, I'm sort of inclined to zero down on some of those as my options. I'll give you an example. Let's quickly go through this. But hello, Rio Dandy. Good to have you in the broadcast. Who is your favorite player? Machua Men. I don't know. Machua Men. I don't know. Do you mean my favorite player of all time? Do you mean my favorite player currently? Because, if you mean of all time, Ronaldinho Gaucho, favorite player of all time. Present day, I enjoy to watch a whole host of players, but I find Kivica Kvaratskhelia very, very interesting. Very, very interesting player. But who doesn't enjoy to watch Lamine Yamal? So I think there could be more than one in that respect. I enjoy watching Michael Olise play. So you never know. What are your thoughts about Belgium squad? The Belgium squad, I've yet to have a look at the Belgium squad, but I do not think that they are still as elite as they used to be. Okay, let's go through them, the Belgium squad, and assess them for what they are. They have Thibaut Courtois from Real Madrid. They have Seny Lomans from Manchester United. They have Mike Penders from Strasbourg. Remember, Mike Penders is a Chelsea goalkeeper unknown to Strasbourg. Defenders, they have Timothy Castagna from Fulham. They have Zeno De Bast from Sporting CP. Max Di Cupia from Brighton and Hove Albion. They have Connie De Winter from AC Milan. Brandon Michele from Club Brugge. Thomas Munia from Lille. Thomas Munia, Jesus Christ, should be retired, by the way. Nathan Goye from Lille. Jacquin Says from Club Brugge. Arthur Athiet from Eintracht Frankfurt. Midfielders, they have KDB from Napoli, Amadou Onana from Aston Villa, Nicolas Raskin from Rangers, Yuri Tielemans from Aston Villa, Hans van Aken from Club Brugge, and Axel Witsel from Girona. Girona just got relegated. So then when you look at their forwards, Charles Di Cattelera from Atlanta, Jeremy Doku from Manchester City, Matheus Fernandes Pardo from Lille, Romelu Lukaku from Napoli, Dodi Lukebakoi from Benfica, Diego Moreira from Strasbourg, Alexis Salamancas from AC Milan, and Leandro Trossard from the Arsenal. When I look at this squad, it's a very weak squad based on what they have been in recent times. At a time when Axel Witsel was still in his prime, when you had KDB in his prime, when you had Eden Hazard, Thorgan Hazard. I mean, Romelu Lukaku has hardly played any good football this season. He's been, for most of the time, injured. And when he returned, he started bickering with his club, particularly during the March international break, because apparently he had been hesitant to return to the club, seeking to have his rehabilitation over in Belgium, as opposed to the club's preference that he returns to Naples. So, I mean, you look around the squad and try to wonder which player has had a good season. Thibaut Courtois had injuries this season, and Seny Lomans maybe has had a good season. By extension, Mike Penders. You look around Timothy Castagna, I mean, average players. So I do not think they would come close. as any favorites, in my humble opinion. Okay. Real Dandy says, "Sir, I haven't seen a more neutral football fan than you." Thank you so much. I try my best as best as I can to continue to learn, but also be as objective as possible, so that I give you a balanced debate and discussion on your respective teams. I appreciate football enough to know that we all pay allegiances to different clubs, but like I said, any allegiance I pay to a particular club is a consequence of my love for football, as opposed to being it the other way around. So, for me, football first. Okay, Achiwamen says, I have a feeling that France having too much star players can be a reason they do not make far in the World Cup. I do not think having a collection of stars will be a problem. However, I also understand where you're coming from to suggest that having a collection of stars could trouble their priorities. In other words, I'll give you an example. When you play in a team that is a collection of stars and everybody wants to be the shine of the team, it impacts decision making on the pitch. And before you know it, players are trying to be selfish, even when they shouldn't be. So when you look at France's attacking force, where you have Kylian Mbappe, they've taken Jean-Philippe Mateta, so obviously Jean-Philippe Mateta is going to be second fiddle. Where you have Michael Olise, Ryan Chaki, Ousmane Dembele, Desiré Doué, Bradley Bakola. That's that sort of cohort. What? Now, I think for me the challenge for Didier Deschamps is how he selects a well-balanced team. First and foremost, I remember watching them at the UEFA Nations League, and this was against Spain. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe he was simply testing out a possibility. He played with a single pivot, and I don't remember exactly who he was, whether it was N'Golo Kante or Chouameni. And he opted to have so many attacking players on the pitch. In Mbappe, in, I think, Michael Olise, in Ryan Chaki, in Dembele, and who was the other? So instead of having a double pivot, so then it burnt his fingers, and then he withdrew one of them and brought in Adrian Rabiot in that midfield. I think if there's a weak link in that far side, it's within the midfield there. I don't think those midfielders are as good. Chouameni, N'Golo Kante is no longer at the absolute best. He is capable of giving you a man of the match performance, but I think he's dropped off. Adrian Rabiot from AC Milan, and then of course, the likes of Camavinga have not been taken, So, yeah, when you're looking for, if somebody asked you the top 5 midfielders, I do not think you would mention them. I do not think you would bring them to the conversation. United wrote 10. Okay. So, anyway, quickly, let's digress back to some of your submissions. I hope I did not miss any. I see one message was retracted by Rio Dandy and another by Aman. Aditya Aman. Hi, Aditya Aman. Good to have you on the broadcast. Rio Dandy says, "Sir, can I ask a question? Just a general football question." It's okay, Rio Dandy. You can always ask any question. If I know if I can make sense of the question, I always answer. If it is out of my locker room, I'll be kind enough to acknowledge just as much. Oscar Rodriguez says, "I predict Harry Kane will be top scorer in the World Cup." Okay. That's if England go far. But in terms of top scorers, Kylian Mbappe. That kid has an eye for goal, depending on how far France go. And by the way, England do not create so many chances. Under Thomas Tuchel, they're going to play a little bit in a conservative manner, I suspect. So United Road says, "I do not rate Desiré Doué, but he took his penalty well on the weekend. I think I rate him quite highly. He's still a youngster that still has a whole future ahead of himself." When you look at their age profile, Bradley Bakola, Desiré Doué, who is the other young kid? Those players that below 24 and below, I mean, they still have the whole future ahead of themselves. They just need to stay humble and keep building on their game. He may not be fancy in terms of dribbling and stuff like that, but he can be very effective. Okay, Kamavinga and Rabiot are in top. Yep. Brother, are you from Mombasa? That is Dennis. Sorry, no, it is not Dennis. It's Denzi. Don White. No, I'm not from Mombasa. I'm from Kampala, Uganda. Kenya is my neighbor, simply as a country with which we share a border. So I'm not from Mombasa. I do not know Swahili. But if you're from Mombasa or from Kenya, allow me to say habari. Okay, sir. Can you name all the Ballon d'Or winner players from 1990 to 99? All the Ballon d'Or winners from 1990 to 99. I may not be able to name them in particular order, but I know Georgie Weah won in 95. I know you're going to find Ronaldo Nazario Darima. I think 97. You could find Zinedine Zidane. I think 98 when France win the World Cup. You'll find Rivaldo was among them. Marco van Basten, Roberto Baggio. Those are some of those that I think I could name in no particular order. But for the years that I've been able to give: 99 Rivaldo, 98 Zinedine Zidane, 97 Ronaldo Nazario Darima, 95 George Opong Weah from Liberia. He was playing at AC Milan at the time. That's the best I can do there. But I hope it answers your question. Okay. Machuamen says League One is so corrupt. We barely had 4 days to prepare for the final, but PSG had 15 days to prepare for the UEFA Champions League. I do not think they are corrupt just because they had extra time to prepare. Remember, League One has 18 teams, and subsequently they play 34 games in the campaign. That's 4 less games as compared to the Premier League, where you have 20 teams who play 38 games. So obviously, chances are that their league is bound to end sooner than the Premier League ends because of those 4 extra games. So I don't think they are corrupt in the sense of that. However, the questions have been over the postponement of, let's say, PSG's games from a weekend just to help accommodate them more time to prepare for a subsequent week fixture in the UEFA Champions League. But I do not think we have much control over that. It's the prerogative of the French League One to heed to their requests or otherwise. But I think in the future, it's going to be questioned a lot more, and it may not happen as quite often as it has happened in recent times. That's what I would want to think about that. Okay. Don White says, my good friend, Willie Latmore from Nairobi is from Nairobi, actually. I wish to visit him someday. Okay. I think Nairobi is a very, very beautiful city with one of the biggest slums in Africa, in Kibera. But it's a very, very beautiful city. I've never chanced myself into visiting there, but I've had the opportunity to watch Nairobi from afar, especially with these vlogs. There's a vlog, I forget the guy. There's a guy from Kazakhstan. No, not Kazakhstan. There's a guy from Azerbaijan that is making, all these visits or worldwide tours, visiting different countries. He's visited Uganda, he's been to Rwanda, he's been to Burundi, he's been to China, he's been to Kenya, and Tanzania, and a couple of other countries, even South Sudan. Okay. So that's how I've been able to watch, Nairobi. Yodandi says, who has played? who has the most played minutes this season in the Premier League? Most played minutes in the Premier League this season. I'm not particularly sure, but I would want to think Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi could be among them. David Raya only missed one game. I'm particularly not sure. Because I don't think Jordan Pickford missed a game of football in the Premier League this season. You know, I'd want to assume it's a goalkeeper because rarely do they get changed. Okay. Somebody asks, am I okay? No, I'm not. Straight as an arrow. I do not subscribe to the ribbons. Oscar Rodriguez says, what are your thoughts on Senesi and Robertson joining Tottenham Hotspur next season? I think Tottenham Hotspur are getting themselves a pair of good players with Premier League experience, well proven, and when especially for a manager that likes to play expansive football and passive football, they're really getting themselves a good a good set of players. Okay, then okay, I think I've responded to all comments. Quickly, to digress back to the World Cup. I think, thanks for the question. We ended up looking at Belgium, but I wanted us to look at some of the other nations, especially in terms of their squads. So, a team like Portugal, who is one of the favorites, how far you think Croatia can go in the World Cup? I don't think they will go as far as they did in 2018 because most of those players have come of age. Ivan Perisic is no longer in his prime. Luka Modric is far from his prime, even though he's still playing at AC Milan. Mateo Kovacic, Brozovic, I do not think. I think at the time they still had Mario Mandzukic. I don't think they'll go so far. So Portugal do not have yet a confirmed squad, but they have a provisional squad that includes players like Diego Costa, the FC Porto goalkeeper, Jose Sa from Wolverhampton Wanderers, Luis Silva, Sporting CP, Ricardo Villo from Ankara, Diego Dalot, Matas Fernandez, Nelson Semedo, Goncalo Inacio from Sporting CP, Joao Cancelo, Nuno Mendes, Renato Viega, Ruben Diaz. Now, I wanted to choose my best 11 for Portugal. Okay. Why not answering my cause? My finger still stink from last night. That is just me. I don't know if the comment is intended for me. Peter says football is a shite game. It's very unfortunate that you feel that way about the sport, but it is your opinion and you're entitled to it. Okay, so I had to choose my best 11 for Portugal. What do you think can be a dark horse in the World Cup? A dark horse in the World Cup. Hi, Reluctant Gamer. Good to have you on the podcast. Dark horse. Let me scan through because remember there are 48 countries. So sometimes I need to remind myself of what countries there is. Dark horse. Maybe Turkey. Turkey could stand the world. I'm thinking out loud. Maybe Turkey could be a dark horse. In my opinion, I don't know what you think about them, but I think they have some good, really good players in that squad. Okay, Reluctant Gamer says, did you pick the winner for the World Cup or you want to make decision on the day it starts? Reluctant Gamer, I'm simply requesting for a bit more time. I was being asked a similar question like you asked me last night, and I could not go beyond a whole list of favorites. So kindly accommodate me more time to formulate my opinion about that. For me, Mexico, that is Oscar Rodriguez. Mexico, they have always been a fairly good team, but they just do not get things done. They just don't get things done. Rio Dandy says Fenerbahce approached Lewandowski, said by Fabrizio Romano. Okay, I mean he's still capable of playing in Europe. And the other day I was being asked a question. I don't remember whether it came from United Road 10. I was being asked, yes, I think it was from United Road 10, and he was asking me about a top Premier League side that I would recommend for him to join and why he would be of importance. And we talked about Manchester United, of how he can help Benjamin Sesko hone his craft if you were to able Manchester United, if you were to join Manchester United. We talked about we disqualified Arsenal because they have Victor Gyökeres, so they need more of a young striker. We talked about Chelsea because players like Joao Pedro and Liam Delap could learn a thing or two off of him. We disqualified Manchester City because they have Brad Erling Haaland and Omar Mamush. Machuamen says, I think Japan is a good team. Yeah, Japan. Yeah, they're a very, very good team. Brother, I'll give you till the round of 16. Okay. For those of you that are not aware, Reluctant Gamer asked me to predict who I think will win the World Cup, and he will super chat me £20 if I get it right. So because it's an expanded tournament from 32 teams to 48 teams, my requests were two: to be given more time, but more importantly, if we can trim off these unwanted feathers, and then we get to the round of 16. Now, I'll make two predictions. Here's what will happen. I'll make a prediction before the start of the World Cup, and it will not be finite. But at the round of 16, that's where, in regards to his offer, I'll make the final decision. But I'll still give you my opinion, nonetheless, before the World Cup. Imran says, are you Jewish? Unfortunately not. I'm as Ugandan as they come. But yeah, Japan is a good team. Thank you so much, Machuamen. So, as choosing my best 11 for Portugal, I'd go with Diego Costa in goal. I'd go with Joao Cancelo at right back. I'd go with Nuno Mendes at left back. I'd go with Ruben Diaz in centre back. I'd go with Renato Vieira from Villarreal. In the midfield, centrally, I'll play Vitinha. I'll play him alongside Ruben Neves. And then add Bruno Fernandes in that midfield trio. Then up front, I'll play Joao Felix. I'll play Rafael Leao and Cristiano Ronaldo. That's how I would choose the starting 11 for Portugal. Super Tube says, what's good, bro? Tato, not much. I hope you're good. What about Nuno Nunes as a right back? Nunes as a right back? Matthias Nunes, I understand where you're coming from with the Nunes suggestion, but I would opt for Joao Cancelo. I think he would offer me much more. Especially when it comes to the overlapping and even inverting into midfield. I think he would offer me more, in my humble opinion. Fresh stream, not really. This stream is almost a fortnight old. So that for the substitutes, you'd have Francesco Trincao, you'd have Francesco Conceição from Sporting CP and Juventus. You'd have Pedro Neto, although I don't know, I just do not rate Pedro Neto that highly. Rafael Leao, from AC Milan. Goncalo Ramos for a striker. So that's how I'd go about that in as far as the Portuguese side is concerned. That's how I go about it. So anyways, we'll continue to discuss these World Cup teams bit by bit. What about Argentina's squad? Argentina, I need to look up their squad, and find out what it is really composed of. Okay, in terms of the Argentina squad, in terms of my starting 11, of course, Emiliano Martinez would still be the number one goalkeeper, even though maybe alternatively, if you are not fit, Joan Mosso from Atletico de Madrid. When it comes to their back pairings, Lisandro Martinez, if he's fit, for me, he would start. Nicolas Otamendi wouldn't start. Cristiano Romero, I find him very edgy and fragile. As in, he's the kind of player that would put you on the edge when he's playing. Anytime he can commit a silly foul. PSG Y5V says you salute to you too, sir. Sorry, sir or madam. I'm not sure what your gender is. You say France will win. They are one of my favorites. I've just not yet sold myself on the idea that they will win. You say next target World Cup, indeed. So when it comes to the World Cup, okay, because of their experience, I'm going to play Lisandro Martinez as a left back. I'll play Cristiano Romero and Nicolas Otamendi, and then Molina at right back. Then for midfielders, I'll choose to play with Enzo Fernandez, Alexis McAllister, and this kid Valentino Bacco, who Chelsea acquiring from Strasbourg. We'll have to wait. Rodrigo de Paul, no. Lucas Paredes from Boca Juniors, maybe. Ezequiel Palacios. Then the forwards, I think you cannot. No, actually, I'll play, yes, Fernandez, McAllister, and play at the tip. I'll play Nico Paz as in that attacking midfield role. And then for the forwards, I'd go with Julian Alvarez, Lionel Messi, and Lautaro Martinez. That's how I would look to assemble them. K.I. Yai says, are you pregnant? Why would I be? I'm a man. Have you not seen the beard? Have you not seen the body build? I'm a man. Why would I be pregnant? Or are you trying to take a dig at my tummy? It's not flat. What do you think of the Netherlands squad? Good, but not good enough. That's what I think about the Dutch squad. I think they're good, but not good enough. They have very good goalkeepers in Mark Flaken, Bart Verbruggen, and Robin Rofis. They both had good seasons at their respective clubs. Then when you look at their defenders, Denzel Dumfries, who has been linked with a potential move to Real Madrid, Nathan Ake hasn't had the best of seasons with Manchester City. Jorel Hato has been trying to find his footing at Chelsea. Jurriën Timber at Arsenal has had a good season, even though it's one that culminated with a bad injury that kept him out for close on to 2 months. Actually, 2.5 months, literally. Mickey van de Ven at Spurs. Excuse me. Virgil van Dijk, John Paul Van Hecke. Now, the question is, who do you play? I think Nathan Ake plays as your left back, and you play Virgil van Dijk alongside Mickey van de Ven and Jurriën Timber as right back. That's how you play. Then the midfield of Frankie de Jong, they have Moten de Roon, they have Ryan Gravenberch, Justin Kluivert hasn't had a good season with AFC Bournemouth. Koop Meiners at Juventus, Tijan Reinders at Manchester City, Costil Quinton Timber. Now, that midfield, Frankie de Jong has to start, I think, alongside Ryan Gravenberch. And, The question is, who is the third midfielders? Koopmeiners or Tijan Reinders? One of those two. Then when you look at their forwards, Brian Brobby from Sunderland, I've seen people sing praise of him, but it's just not it for me. Memphis Depay from Corinthians, Cody Gakpo hasn't had a great season. Noah Lang from Galatasaray has been fairly well, on loan from Napoli. Daniel Malen has had a good season ever since he made the loan move from Aston Villa to Roma. Crescencio Somerville from West Ham and Weghorst. I mean, Somerville, fair season. I mean, their attacking force is not that threatening. It's not it for me. Love cupcakes. God damn it. Okay. KI say Depay. Okay. Okay. Who do you think will start for France? Let me answer that in a bit. MJN, you say hi. Gage Cox says, how is your day? My day is brilliant. How about yours, Gage Cox? Aside from VVD and Depay, I can't name another Dutch player. Oh, really? Julian Timber is a Dutch player. Maybe you just did not, they may not come off of your fingertips, or you may just not remember quickly that they are Dutch players. But I mean, the goalkeeper, Mark Flecken, Bart Verbruggen from Brighton and Hove Albion, Denzel Dumfries from Inter Milan, Jorel Hato from Chelsea. I'm sure you've had some of these names. Julian Timber, you know. Can you just have a box of cupcakes, please? I'm not close to a confectionery shop. But okay, let's look at the France squad. I think the goalkeeper will be Mike Maignan from AC Milan. I don't think that will change. Because I mean, Samba from Stade Rennes. Then the centre back pairing, I think it's going to be Dayot Upamecano alongside Ibrahim Konate. For those of you that were with us last night, we were discussing William Saliba's back injury, reported back injury, which could see him miss the World Cup. So that's why I'm going with that pairing. But ordinarily, I would go with Dayot Upamecano to play alongside William Saliba. Then when it comes to the fullbacks, I would think they're going to go with Jules Koundé at right back, and then maybe Theo Hernandez or Lucas Hernandez to play at left back. Then our midfielders, they have N'Golo Kante, they have Adrien Rabiot. Okay, maybe some of those that I missed for you, for the defenders. They have Lucas Digne in there. They have Theo Hernandez, Lucas Hernandez, Ibrahim Konate, Jules Koundé, Malo Gusto from Chelsea, Maxence Lacroix from Crystal Palace. They're all in there. So, but I'll go with the other two. When it comes to the midfielders, I think he's going to start with Tchouaméni alongside Adrien Rabiot in that midfield. But he also has N'Golo Kante, he has Manu Kone from AC Roma, and he has Warren Zaïre-Emery from PSG. For the forwards, he has Magnus Akleichau from Monaco, Kylian Mbappé, Real Madrid, Ousmane Dembélé, PSG, Marco Olise, Bayern Munich, Desiré Doué, PSG, Bradley Barcola, Ryan Cherki, Manchester City, Marcus Thuram from Inter Milan, and Jean-Philippe Mateta from, so that's why I said, so the midfield double is, for me, Adrien Rabiot and Tchouaméni. Those are the ones that could start. And then ahead of them will be a player like Ryan Cherki in the number 10 role, then Michael Olise to the right, Ousmane Dembélé to the left, and Kylian Mbappé playing centrally. That's how I think he could set up his team. To answer your question about France. Okay, let me see. Okay, Quinton says, can you please have a box of cupcakes, please? Where is Pogba? There's no Pogba, there's no Eduardo Camavinga. Those were omitted. I mean, they both struggled through the campaign this season. Paul Pogba, injuries have disturbed his 2-year career that he's bound to have with AC Monaco. The only club that were willing to give him a chance at the top end of the football pyramid, So there's that. We have to wait and see. Okay. Oh, really? Jesus Christ. Absolutely not. According to Goal, Arsenal could be set to launch a sensational move for Marcus Rashford as Mikel Arteta looks to overhaul his attacking options this summer. Nah. Expensive option for nothing. Machuamen says, do you think Arsenal were robbed in the UEFA Champions League final? Robbed? I don't think so. I think there's a couple of decisions that did not go their way. But I do not think it's to the level of significance to say they were robbed. The Noni Madueke challenge for me is not a penalty because he puts his arm around the defender to get himself dragged down, as opposed to him trying as much as possible to lean his shoulders into the player, really getting ahead of him, so that any contact from then on can lead to a foul. So I do not think that was a penalty. Maybe Bukayo Saka should have been let to take his corner at the tail end of the first half. I think the referee could have, told him to get on with it, but he simply called it time to an end because he figured Bukayo Saka was wasting time, and indeed some Arsenal players were wasting time. There are those 50-50 decisions that went PSG's way. So, for example, the tackle was by, was it by Declan Rice? No. I don't remember by which Arsenal player. It was Bukayo Saka stepping on top of the ball and then winning it against Desiree Doué, and that was given as a foul, including, I think, a booking. I didn't think that was the case. So I don't think they were robbed. Where do you think Rafael Leao lands this summer? I do not know where he will land this summer, but any top side, particularly in the Premier League, will be glad to have him, or anywhere in Europe. Now, I've said Liverpool could use a player of his talent. Manchester United could use a player of his talent. Arsenal could use a player of his talent. Tottenham, he would be quite a scoop for Tottenham Hotspurs. Chelsea could use a player of his quality if they are willing to get rid of some of those players that they do have in that I don't know who the sacrificial lamb will be. I'm not going to think it's going to be William Esteval. I don't know if it will be a Jamie Gittens or Alejandro Garnacho, but you need to create space there. Sairaji says, if you are having a worst day, then remember Mbappe left PSG to win the Champions League. You've reminded me of this phrase from Suits. It goes that good news on a bad day is better than bad news on a good day. Hi, London. That is Yokozi. Is it Yokozi or Yokozi? Jesus Christ. I suck at reading names. So, guys, please find it within your hearts to excuse my inefficiencies when it comes to reading some of your names. Okay. Maybe he's going to the Saudis. Who is going to the Saudis? Rafael Leao? Nah. I wouldn't want him to go to the Saudis. Unless he wants to revive his career the way that Joao Felix has done. But I do not think it's fallen far off to the extent that it needs that sort of revival, really, in my humble opinion. So I still feel that he's capable of bowling at the highest level in as far as European football is concerned. At AC Milan, he's been deployed as, this force striker playing alongside Christian Pulisic, that kind of thing, because they play with the back three, they play with a wing backs type of thing, and he scored 9 goals and provided 3 assists, which is a 12-goal involvement this season. That is shy of the 16-goal involvement that he had last season, and shy of the 17-goal involvement he had the 18 goal involvement he had in the campaign prior. That was in the 2023-2024 season. In the UEFA Champions League for 2023-2024, he scored 4 goals and provided 1 assist. So he's a good player. Big dollars, maybe he gets attracted by the money, but like I said, for me, it's more of a personal preference to see him continue in Europe as opposed to going away to the Saudi Pro League. And maybe that's because, I don't know. You see, there's some players that you see and you want to watch them more often. And to be fair, I do not get to watch the Saudi Pro League as often. Once in a while, I'll pick up on a big game, for example, against Al Hilal and Al Nassr and watch that. But he needs to, I don't know. I would want him to stay. You know, it's the case of, let's say, if you support Manchester United and you hear that maybe Arsenal trying to sign Lamine Yamal, you'd be praying that if you Manchester United can't sign him, he would rather not come to the Premier League entirely or at all. Oh, thank you so much, Oscar. Thank you so much, Oscar Rodriguez. Oh, thank you so much for the cup of coffee. Oscar's just bought me a cup of coffee. He becomes the 6th person to buy me a cup of coffee on this channel. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. So I think that's the sort of place he would be at, or I'd want to think of him. I still want to see him at this side of the aisle, you know. So how are you going to manage late night World Cup games? I've been honest enough with you guys and with myself that unfortunately, I cannot watch all games. The reason for that is simple. For example, you have a game kicking off at 4 a.m. East African time. If I watch that game, it's going to end at around 6 a.m. And then I have to be present here to do a 9 a.m. broadcast. So in other words, I would have possibly 2 hours to sleep and then come back and do the broadcast. Unfortunately, I may not be able to do that. So what is going to happen is that I'll do my best to watch as many games as I can, either actively or at least passively, so that I have an informed opinion of what I give you in terms of my overview of the World Cup. But similar to the way we had the FIFA Club World Cup, I mean, there are games that begin so late. Now, I'll give you an example. Our night broadcast kicks off at 11 p.m. East African time. Some games will kick off at 1 a.m. So that means if I do the broadcast at 11 p.m., it goes on until midnight or beyond, and then I get to watch the game at 1 a.m. That game I can watch. But remember, it would end like at 3 a.m., and then I can go to bed. Imagine watching a game that kicks off at 1 a.m. and until 3 a.m., and then you wait for 1 hour and then watch the one at 4 a.m. So it's not very plausible for me to watch all games, but I'll do my best to catch up on as many games as possible until then. So that's how I intend to go about it. I do not know if there's somebody out there that will be able to watch all games. I do not know, you know, but let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the best. At least for the first couple of days, the fixture schedule seems a bit slightly favorable. For example, the opening game between Mexico and South Africa is at 10 p.m. That will be on a Thursday. Then the subsequent days, that's a Friday, you have only 2 games. That is South Korea against Czech Republic. You'll have Canada against Bosnia. The South Korea game will kick off at 5 p.m. Then the game against Canada will be at 10 p.m. Then subsequently on Saturday, you have a game at 4 a.m. So that's the kind of game that I may not be able to watch between USA and Paraguay. And then you have another game between Qatar and Switzerland at 10 p.m. So for games that kick off at 4 a.m., I may find trouble watching them really. Okay. Let me get to those comments in a bit. There's something that I wanted to acknowledge. Let me see if I can find that short list. So okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. So Oscar Rodriguez joins Abdul Wahid, joins Breadcrumbs, joins Ash, Reluctant Gamer, Jesus JY, 815, and Anne as people that have super chatted me. I know for a fact that Rio Dandy attempted, but something failed. But thank you so much there, Oscar. Okay. Hi, Jeffrey. Oh, sorry. You said this Jeffrey. That is Shivam Sharma. Hi, Shivam Sharma. I live in USA. I'm going to watch all of them. How are you going to be able to watch all of them? Oscar, unless you say, now, it's not impossible to watch all of them. Unless you say that, one, you're not going to wake up to go to work, or to, obviously, because it's summer, maybe there's no school, but some people have summer school or internship or anything. Unless you have that open a schedule, I don't know if all fixtures will favor you. But anyway, I'll be glad if you can give us some updates for all the games that you're able to catch up on. And for the people that will be able to go to the actual stadia and watch these games live, I'll be looking forward to hearing from you what your match experience is going to be at the different places that you may afford yourself to go. Okay. Wow, nice super chat. Yes, nice indeed. For me, I'm gonna watch one game daily and the highlights of others. One game daily, only one. Okay, maybe two. Anyway, it depends. It depends. We all have different schedules. For some people are really, really going to by the struggle to watch any of these games because of their work schedule, and then coupled with rest time, and then work again. Because remember, some people work very many hours a day, and by the end of the day, you're really, really tired. That even when you turn on your TV and sit to watch, 30 minutes in, the game or the TV is going to start watching you. In other words, you'll be dozing off, and it is the TV watching you as opposed to you watching it. Okay. Reluctant Gamer says, Oscar, is it expensive to go for matches? Yes, very expensive. So I've come to hear. There's one time we were digesting some of those ticket prices and what it could cost for a regular fan or an everyday fan to go out there and watch a game of football. I mean, if a ticket is $100, let's say to go and watch a game, and you have to factor in food and drinks and transport, that means you're looking at anywhere between, depending on where you're coming from, in other words, your proximity to a stadium. Remember, the US is so big. Imagine you watch a game, let's say in Houston, Texas, and the next game is going to be at what state is the MetLife Stadium? In what state is it? I'm forgetting. Is it New Jersey? I don't remember. And then you have to go watch a game in somewhere in Miami, So logistically, it's going to be quite expensive, So, but for those that can afford to, they'll enjoy it because you'll be moving from one city to another. But obviously, you see, travel. If you enjoy traveling by land and you think you can go on a road trip, driving yourself from one state to another, and you can take it in, good and well for you. But you catch a game in Houston and then you fly out to Miami for the next day's game, and then maybe on another day you have to find yourself somewhere in California or Los Angeles. I do not know, but it's going to be a bit expensive for many people. But you see, the good thing is that for many people who have always had the dream to vacation in the USA, it's a good opportunity. You may not necessarily go to the stadia and watch all of the games. You may watch some of these games in public spaces, at pubs, things like that. But, you still enjoy the bit of it. Okay. For me, my challenge has been with the visa restrictions that have been placed on multiple countries for whom they may have fans that would have loved to go and watch, these games. Okay. A big fan, Jeffrey. That's Shivam. Oscar. Okay, I think I read that. Oscar, yes, I had enjoyed, though would be good. I think Ash FCB also donated. Yeah, I mentioned Ash. I mentioned Ash. I cannot forget him. He donated about £7, close there. You're the one who did for me the math, actually, because his was in, I think, Indian rupees. Machuamen says, I think hosting World Cup in multiple countries is a bad idea. Is it a bad idea? I don't think it's a bad idea, especially with the expansion of the tournament. Because remember, it's gone from 32 countries to 48. And instead of 64 games, you're going to have 104 games. I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea, especially if these countries are in proximity. So these are countries that share borders. Only that USA as a country itself is so big as a country. So, and then because it is the United States of America, so 50 states combined to come together and organize this. So, but for the different time zones. Remember when in 2018, when Russia hosted the World Cup, as I came to learn that they have 9 different time zones, because Russia also is so big as a country. But I'm not opposed to the idea of hosting a tournament in different countries because it gives people quite the experience to even navigate those 3 countries for as long as logistically it's not too expensive, you remember in 2002 when Korea and Japan hosted the World Cup, so that's how I look at it. Okay. Reluctant Gamer says you'll have to travel around the country, very big country. I'm sure it takes so many hours on a plane to go from one end to another. Yeah, you see, and I think that will cause a bit of fatigue for some people, in a way, because even just being in transit can be tiresome enough. The first few fixtures are boring matchups. Really, what's the topic? That is Christmas. It's the World Cup. We're looking at the World Cup. We're looking at we've looked at Arsenal at the start of the broadcast. We've looked at a whole host of other things. It depends on the submission. So do not bury yourself too much on the headline there. Okay. About trans pregnancy, Jesus Christ. New Jersey, thank you so much, Oscar. Okay, different time zones though. Yeah, you see, when it comes to the different time zones, unfortunately, there's not an ideal point in the world or an ideal time, because I'll give you an example. Right now, it's 13 minutes past 11 a.m. for me in Kampala, Uganda. It's 13 minutes past 9 a.m. for somebody in the UK or German or in some of those European countries. It's the same time in Turkey. Over in the USA, I'm not particularly sure. I think I need to check my world clock and see what time it is, let's say in a place like New York or something. So in Rome, it's 18 minutes past 10 a.m. That means they are 1 hour ahead, as well as Munich. Sorry, they are 1 hour behind. London is 2 hours. For somebody from New York, it's 18 minutes past 4 a.m. So you can imagine, for me, it's morning. For them, it's late in the wee hours. So it's always going to vary. Somebody in Russia may be either in the middle of the night or in the late afternoon. So it's really, really hard to find an ideal hour that suits everybody around the globe. So we just have to live. That's why the UEFA Champions League final was moved from a 10 p.m. kickoff time, East African time, to 7 p.m. You do not know how they made that very favorable for a host of football fans within the African side of the continent. Because essentially the game took literally 3 hours to end because of extra time and the penalties, etc. Then, because our colleagues in Rwanda, who are immediate neighbors, are 1 hour, I think, behind us. So for them, it's 10 a.m. So for the 7 p.m. kickoff, for them, it was about 6 p.m. Okay. Oscar says, I think the summer heat will affect the players it gets very, very hot here in the summer. Oh, speaking about the heat, you remind me, at one time, I was watching AFTV. For the last, I think, 2 years, Arsenal have had their preseason in the USA. I think 2 or 3 years now. And AFTV followed them to cover, that preseason thing like that and have a chat with USA fans. And I remember Robbie Lyle doing one of his Transfer Daily shows, and he said it was blazing hot out there. It felt 100 degrees out there in the summer. Now, I've had my share experience of being under the sun, and I can understand the sort of toll this may take on players. So that's why, for some of the games, they're going to be late kickoffs, so that the humidity is a bit low. So we must also remember that. And fortunately, there's going to be cooling breaks in between these games. The referees, I think, will have the discretion. Maybe the way we saw in the Champions League final, every halfway of the one half, you will have a cooling break. But yeah, it may take a toll on people. But also the good thing is that Ramadan is already done. So for players that are Muslim, imagine if it is the summer, it is that hot, and then you have players that are also fasting. I think it would have affected them more. So all factors considered, yeah, the temperatures will be hot. I don't know what that means for preparation of games. I think some players some teams will be training indoors or in the very early morning hours, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, then remember in the Club World Cup last summer when they postponed some games because of clouds? Yeah, I mean, weather changes. So if they feel that it is of a big threat to the players, they're definitely going to postpone something. Oscar says it is 3:14 a.m. for you. You see, I particularly don't remember what part of the USA you are from, because again, even the USA has that thing of different time zones. So I highlighted New York, and for New York, it's 4 a.m. But it appears you're about an hour behind of New York. And I remember I think it was Steve Harvey who said it, although, I mean, I don't know if he said it the wrong way or he was quoted out of context. He was saying, what are you doing sleeping when the Wall Street market has already opened in was it Atlanta? Something like that. How Chelsea stopped this PSG side is a mystery to me. Oh, shouldn't be a mystery to you. They did overload the midfield with Caicedo, Richie James, and Enzo Fernandez, and played Cole Palmer a bit wide. So they had an isolation of Nuno Mendes and bang. East Coast. Is it not West Coast, East Coast? Yes. Yeah. East Coast, West Coast. I remember reading this book by Michelle Obama, Becoming. Very, very interesting book. Arguably the best book I've ever read. And I do not read many books, by the way, guys. Or haven't read many, at least by now. But one of the best books I've ever read. I remember every time some of the things that I read and I could relate to, not particularly in the context of the USA, but in my own context as growing up. But more, it made me have this sort of innate desire to want to go and visit some of those places that she was talking about in the book, Lake Michigan, the South Side. Talking about Chicago. She talked about this flight when people moved from the South Side to a different place. That sort of migration of people. Then she talked about what's that? Is it Grand Park or Grant Park? I think one of the two, maybe Grant Park, something like that. So, anyways, that's just about it. Who is your favorite rapper? Mine is Biggie. Rapper? I'm not the biggest fan of rap music. but I've appreciated different songs from different rappers. Like, for example, Dear Mama from Tupac, 21 Questions, and Candy Shop by 50 Cent. I've enjoyed Eminem. Very, very good guy, but I think I'd go with Eminem. I've enjoyed Jay-Z's Empire State of Mind with Alicia Keys. Yeah, Oscar, I don't know. There's a channel on YouTube. It's called Cool Vision. Cool Vision is one of those guys that has taken me on the tour around the US. In places like Houston, like Chicago, the museums, etc. I think, is it Chicago State University, New York, and a couple of other places. It's one of those channels. I don't know if he still does produce content as quite often, but yeah, I found his content really, really good. And when he shows you around the place, although if I ever got the chance to go to the US, I wouldn't want to live in an expensive city. I'm that averse. Gangsta Paradise, that's a KI talking about, I think, Chicago. Now, that's the thing about Chicago. Chicago, I don't know why. Chicago has that reputation to it with gang violence and sort of that thing. I do not want to prejudice myself into thinking that it's all over Chicago. I think it's in certain parts of Chicago, the way you would have crime in any city around the world. But so I've heard. Okay. Machuamen, I hope I've answered your question when it comes to the rappers. But yeah, you say Chicago is very beautiful. Yeah, I've seen some really, really beautiful scenes of Chicago. Oh, what else? There's something that I thought I'd skipped. No, I didn't skip it. Okay. I think we've looked at it all. So the people that will be lucky enough to watch my semi-finalist pick, I think if we had, let's say, Portugal versus France, Spain versus England, or Spain versus Argentina, England versus Portugal versus France, that would be top beans. But the Brazil fan in me would have loved to see Brazil up there. I'm just trying to be objective enough to acknowledge that. And unless Brazil surprise me, I do not see them in the semifinals. They could surprise me by their virtue of their own performances and get that far in the competition. But I've not brought myself to the idea of that I could see them there. I've just not brought myself to that idea. I have a feeling that they're going to struggle. I have a feeling that they could struggle. But so that's the objective me. But if it were the wishful me, I'd say bring Brazil versus England semi-final, bring Portugal versus Spain. And we see, and we see how it goes. It wouldn't hurt to even have Morocco or any other African country in there. Maybe DRC Congo. I love DRC Congo because of Sebastian Dosabre. Never mind that they are immediate neighbors. Okay. Daniel says, happy Tuesday. Hello, everyone. Thanks Sports Highlights. And who will be the first World Cup? And who will be this World Cup's underdog? There's so many. Because when you talk about an underdog, you're looking at a country that you think would beat the odds. I can't back Mexico for some reason. I just can't back them. I just do not feel that they have it in them. Underdogs. Maybe Japan. Yeah, Japan would be my underdog. Switzerland have a way of doing things. Canada, I'm not too sold about Canada. I'm neither too sold about USA. So maybe Turkey, Sweden. You never know. They have a decent team. Oh, apologies on the internet glitch there. So, for example, Sweden have some good players. Taha Ali from Malmo. They have Victor Gyökeres from Arsenal. They have Alexander Isak from Liverpool. Gustav Nilsson from Club Brugge. Alexander Bahadson from Holstein Kiel. Anthony Elanga. Yasin Ayari from Brighton. Lucas Bagville from Tottenham Hotspur. Jesper Karlstrom from Udinese. You never know. Who is the best football? Oh, okay. Who is the best football team in Uganda? Currently, it's Vipers Sports Club. They are the best. They've won the Uganda Premier League for 3 consecutive seasons. Traditionally, it's Sports Club Villa. They've won the Uganda Premier League 17 times. And then you have teams like KCCA or Kampala Capital City Authority Football Club, who have won it, I think, 13 or 14 times. I think 13 times. You have Express FC, but they've fallen off. But like I said, currently it's Vipers, Sports Club Villa. Those will be my pick. Uganda be kidding me. Anyways, guys, it's been 1 hour and 52 minutes. Why don't you allow me call it a wrap? Thank you. It's been a pleasure having this discussion with you. I can only hope that you continue to do the same. Thanks so much for the love and support. KI, thank you so much. Oscar Rodriguez, thank you so much. Machua Men, thank you so much. Daniel Berry's Sports Highlights, thank you so much. Machua Men. Okay, a reluctant gamer, always a pleasure to have you. Oscar, in a special way, thanks for the cup of coffee. Yokozi, thank you so much. MJN, thank you so much. Gage Cox, it was a pleasure to have you. PSG, Y5V, thank you so much. Supertube, it was always a pleasure. Imran, thank you so much. Peter, yes, Peter, thank you so much. Funky Laugh X, it was a pleasure. Dennis Don White, Dinez Don White, thank you so much. Somebody called Aditya Aman, thank you so much. Rio Dandy, thank you so much. Raymond Kangumba, it was a pleasure. WSFK 2170, Jive at 5. It was a pleasure. Scott, thank you so much. V Mboro, thank you so much. Scott 1992, thank you so much. Quinton, thank you so much. Know your creator, it was a pleasure, as well as Prince William. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. You gained a new subscriber. Thank you so much, Oscar. KY says, came here to troll, stayed for football knowledge. Thank you so much, KII. That's good. A good review to hear. Cap says, why do you think it is our people love soccer but can't put together a decent team ever? I mean, I do not know, because just because you love something does not mean that you can be very good at it, because football is built through structures. Modern day football is organized in a certain way. Having a strong domestic league helps. It helps to feed players into overseas leagues that they improve their quality. The grassroots development of football until that sort of stage is really, really brilliant. So I love food, but I can't cook. So I cannot give you a definitive answer, but it is what it is. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Have a blessed day, a wonderful rest of the week, and the month ahead. Until next time, which will be at 11 p.m. tonight. Bye bye for now.